Hi, welcome to The Big Twist, a podcast where we talk to other creatives about the big creative plot twists in their lives. We are here with Kim Krizan today. We're very excited to have you. Thank you. Kim is a writer of iconic films, and she's also a teacher. Thank you for joining us.
I am very happy to be here with you ladies today. This is a treat. Thank you.
Yay.
We want to dive right into two of my favorite films of all time, Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, which you co-wrote. Can you tell us about how that came about?
Oh gosh, it was all a tremendous fluke, actually. I had always wanted to be a writer from the time I was a little girl, but really didn't know how to get into that world. And I certainly didn't go after writing films. But when I was living in Austin, Texas, I was working on a master's thesis on Anais Nin, the Diarist, and I had the most boring job in the world, proofreading legislation at the Texas Capitol.
Wow.
And one of my coworkers told me that a little film was being made, a little student film, and that I should go audition. And I told this friend at the job that I had never acted in a film before. He said, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just a little student film. You should go and audition for the movie. And so I did. And it ended up that I got a part in the movie, and it was called Slacker. So in the course of my little audition, I told the person interviewing me, who was Richard Linklater, who had not done anything at that point and was in his 20s. I told him that I was working on this master's thesis. He always asked to read it. And I just thought he was just being nice to me. But finally, I gave him the master's thesis one day. And the next day, he called and asked me to meet him the following day. The following day, I met him at a restaurant in Austin called Mother's. And I got to the restaurant. He was sitting there with my thesis. I sat down and he said, "Do you want to write a movie with me?" And
amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Wild.
So I told him I'd never written a film. And he said, and the truth is that I really hadn't read scripts at that point. Now, I think I found out that that's actually not a bad thing, because not knowing what you're doing means you might do things in a really fresh way. I really believe that sometimes it's good just to come into things with enthusiasm rather than a whole bunch of knowledge. But
I love that.
So I asked him what sort of movie he wanted to make. He said a boy meets girl movie. And I told him that I had traveled a lot on trains by myself in England and Europe, and that it was an interesting way to meet people. And I had met people while I was traveling, and I would have like a great day hanging out with them, and then we'd have to part ways. He said, "Great. Let's use that as our little template." So we just brainstormed for about 5 days, and then we sat down and we wrote it.
And you wrote it in a very short amount of time.
The brainstorming period lasted about 5 days, after which we came up with a little outline and we put it on a poster board. We just pinned index cards on a poster board, and we're like, okay, we'll go from this moment to this moment to this moment. Then we moved over to his apartment, because when we were doing all the brainstorming, we were in my little duplex, and it was late at night, and we were just kind of sitting there just throwing off ideas. When we got to his place, he had a computer. I did not yet have a computer because it was 1993. And so he had pinned up the poster over his computer, and we sat down at his desk, one after the other. The whole process was about 16 days.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And how close is the script that you came up within 16 days to the final movie, would you say?
I would say it's close. I would say there were conversations that were polished up, because when we sat down, we were just kind of reacting spontaneously. With time, we were able to polish up moments and realize we could go for more depth here, we can go for more subtlety there. And I also know that by the point at which he was in Vienna shooting, I was sending him faxes and saying, hey, let's, here's a possible scene. And he was also talking with the actors, and they were suggesting how, they would like to tweak moments in the story. So it's very close, but I'd say it got polished up a bit.
One of the things I love about Before Sunrise is that it depicts Vienna as this mecca for artists. You've got Jesse and Celine meeting, a poet, 2 actors, several street performers, a belly dancer. So I just wondered, how intentional was that? Was that what Vienna was like at the time? Was that written specifically into the script? Can you talk about that?
I think it's what Austin was like.
Interesting.
Austin, Texas is a very creative town. And it especially was when I lived there in the 80s and 90s. It was, so many artists, so many becoming artists in that town. I mean, lots and lots of people who were musicians, visual artists, dancers. I was obsessed with belly dancing. I took belly dancing for 6 years, and I was obsessed with it. Oh God, I mean, we knew 1,000 artists. Everybody was artistic. And so we did not know the movie was going to be shot in Vienna. We actually thought the movie would be shot in America.
Oh, wow.
And we thought it would be on Amtrak.
Ah.
Wow.
And we actually went and looked around San Antonio. So it was a wonderful fluke, yet another one, so many, let's say twist, because that's your word. It was a wonderful twist that Rick found funding in Vienna, because you know how these European countries often have funding so that films can be shot in and bring jobs, to their countries. Yeah. This happens in a number of countries. Well, it just so happened that we were offered funding in Vienna, and I had been there and knew that it was sort of flying under the radar as far as romantic cities go. It's gorgeous and subtle. There's a subtlety to it. I mean, it's gorgeous like Paris in a lot of ways. I mean, unbelievable statues and buildings, but not quite as known or quite as grand. The history is incredible. So there are artists, you have to dig a little bit to find those artists. And Rick, I don't think, had a lot of trouble finding those artists. Of course, it's a German culture in many ways. I mean, they speak German there. But so it was a fluke, it was a twist.
Yeah, and I specifically loved that people in the movie and, all these extras, as they're walking through the streets, they're actually engaging with these performers and with the art. And it made me nostalgic because as I was rewatching it for this interview, I quickly realized no one's on their phones. Everyone is in the moment. And even a part of the point of the movie is that love forces you to live in the present, right? Jesse has that beautiful line about how he can forget who he is when he is with Celine, right? And I wondered if you could talk about that too, what you were trying to say about love in that film.
I remember very specifically talking to Rick about how I believe in the moment. I believe there's a moment in which we come close to meeting one another in communication. It's we can't know for sure whether we're understood or not, because we're in our brains, right? And we're using language in our own way, but we think we see in somebody else's eyes that they understand us, or we feel that we understand them. And so I talked to him about how it's an attempt. It's all an attempt. And I guess where a lot of us get hung up is that when we have connection, we want that feeling to go on forever and ever. And that cannot be guaranteed, because we're changing and growing all the time. We're different from day to day, maybe from hour to hour, and the other person is changing and growing. And so I think the best course, and I told Rick, I thought the best course is to cherish the moment and know that that's really what our lives are going to be. Many, hopefully, beautiful moments. Hopefully, when we're lying on our deathbed, we think back and we're like, God, that was a great experience, and I had an amazing conversation with so-and-so, and that was a beautiful summer with so-and-so, instead of having to have the whole package, because we're probably, you can make your story whatever. You can make it good. You can frame it however you want. But I think if you look at beautiful moments, then you're going to store away the beauty.
That's hitting so hard.
Yeah,
Yeah. I just said I haven't cried in one of our interviews in a while, but you got me right off the bat. That is so hard. That was incredibly liberating to hear you say that.
Thank you.
Because I think of my life that way in a lot of ways, of that there are these moments, and I can put expectations on moments sometimes. And I love you just saying that so beautifully, of like, no, it's a moment, and it will evolve and grow and go in these different ways, and just embrace that and enjoy it with that person.
I was wondering if your eyes were filling with tears or if there's because that was really profound. That was really profound to see that.
Thank you. Well, it hit me. It hit me in such a good way. Like, I've actually been thinking a lot about this, and I've been thinking about intense moments in my life, and that was just such a liberating way of like thinking about it, of just embracing it for what it is, just accepting it as this beautiful thing you have right now in the present moment.
And that's what the movie does.
And that's what the movie does.
They establish fairly quickly as characters, this is our last and only night together.
Yeah.
That expiration date, I think, imbues it with such importance, and I think brings them closer all the faster, right, than if they had all the time in the world. Because I think one of the beautiful things about it is that you get to see the evolution of a relationship in a night. I'm sure that was very intentional as well, that like they have like their big fight, and even how it ebbs and flows. That was another thing I wanted to ask you about, how they speak so naturally, and the conversation evolves from a place of spontaneity and lightness to it's not like until you get to halfway through the movie that they even ask each other, are you seeing anyone else? I thought that was very, very human. It was like, it wasn't until like pretty late on that like, Jesse even musters up the courage to ask, right?
Yeah, I loved it when he talked about his girlfriend who he met, and she was in this is, I think, pure Ethan Hawke. He said, an asinine art program. I love that he used that word. My feeling is that when the relationship, let's call it a relationship, when it starts on the train, obviously he sees her, she's aware of him, he's going to try to woo her and get her off the train. And then they have only so many hours before they're going to have to part, because he's going to have to leave and she's going to have to leave. I remember conversations I had with people on trains, in which it's just like, why not ask the possibly big question of this person? Because you're going to part, we didn't have social media back then when I was doing these train travels as a young girl with a backpack. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media. So I could just go ahead and ask the person whatever I wanted or say whatever I wanted. If if they didn't like my question, they could just get up and leave. Or if I didn't like them, I could just make an excuse, say, I'm going to the restroom, and then split, So there's nothing holding you back from being honest, because you can get out at any time and you're never going to see one another. Chances of staying in touch on social media, well, that didn't exist.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting aspect to it.
Yeah. And even then, it's like it took him a while to open up, whereas Celine seemed much more free-flowy. And I think that spoke to the different places they were at as characters. Because one of the things I wanted to also dive into is how much of your personality did you infuse into Celine, and how much of his personality did Rick infuse into Jesse? Or were you both inhabiting both characters?
We definitely worked on both characters some. It wasn't strictly that I was to write the female part or he was to write the male part, but we did naturally head in that direction. And I'm told over and over that by people who know me that it's like, having a conversation with me to see that movie, especially Before Sunrise. And so that's interesting for me to get that distance and to see, oh, that's how I come off. That's really interesting because I don't have that objectivity. I don't know, I don't know how I've come off. So yeah.
And it seems that you are a deeply philosophical person.
Yeah.
Then. And that's what I love, I think, about artists and being amongst other writers and directors, especially in a town like this, where you can have these greater conversations, right? You can detach yourself from your everyday problems and talk about the state of the world and the meaning of love and, what it means to be human in a very casual conversation with a stranger.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that there's so many creative people here and in this business. And I think that creative people have more bandwidth for these sorts of conversations. They don't think it's weird to have this sort of conversation about life and death. And, they think this is normal. They think emotions are normal. I mean, they have to be professional when they go to work and get their stuff done, and they can't be expressing them, but at all times. But that's really where they're drawing from is that creativity and that wide open bandwidth.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and ask you that because that was when you brought up Austin. I'm very intrigued, and that feels like a nice segue into talking about the creative people you were around in Austin, because I'm an actor first and foremost and came up in the Chicago theater community for a while. And so when folks were moving, when people were trying to decide like what's next, if we want to take our careers to another level, where do we go? People were going to New York, LA, and I had quite a few friends go to Austin, and they're still there, and I love it. And they have found such a creative home there. They have found such a community there. And they absolutely love it. And I love going to visit. I love going to visit them. And so I'm curious about this like transition, if we're ready to make a transition. Obviously, we can still keep talking about the movies as well if you want. But I'm very curious about your acting life. And I think when we started, you said you had not auditioned or you had not been in anything what a wild story too. Like what an actor's dream to just be like, your first thing was with someone like Richard Linklater. Like how amazing in this relationship you developed together. But what was that like for you being an actor first? Like, how did you choose that route? What was your process in being an actor or wanting to be an actor? And then also moving from that to writing, like, is that specific enough? Or are you great to just talk about that?
So when I was working on my master's thesis, I realized that focusing solely on that was scaring me because it put too much pressure. It's, it's a 100-page research paper on a writer I really cared about, and I wanted to do it right. And so I realized that what I needed to do was to free myself up by doing a lot of creative things and fulfilling myself in many ways, so that I had the juice to write. And so I took dance classes, and I did, I had a little band, and I did all kinds of stuff. I took a little wine tasting thing so I could learn about wine, and acting was just one of the many things that I just did not seriously at all. But so I went to that audition. He gave me a part. It was his first film, so he was not, the great Richard Linklater at that time. He was a complete unknown who had made nothing. And I was told it was a student film. Well, it wasn't a student film. But he was just an independent filmmaker. He didn't have a degree or anything. He was an independent filmmaker, huge film buff. And he wanted to make this story that was kind of based on a European, structure of just moving from character to character to character through a day. And I had no idea really what to expect, except that he put me with these two girls and said, and we were just talking, and I guess he was listening in. We were talking about traveling or something, because I had traveled at that point, by myself with a backpack and very little money. And the other girl was talking about a breakup or something. And anyway, he sort of listened in and said, hey, just talk about what you're talking about. He said, but Kim, I want you to be the kind of pessimistic one. And he said to the other girl, I want you to be the sort of romantic. And so that's the direction I had. And that's what we did. When it came time to roll the film, I mean, I remember, oh my God, it was like a night in summertime. It was August, and August is very hot.
So hot in Texas in August.
Hot and humid. But I remember we sat there all night waiting for him to get to us. And we were in a little cafe, Les Amis, which is gone now. It's a Starbucks, unfortunately. But when he got to us, I remember that I just got in character. And I think I had just spent a lot of my childhood, in my mind, acting things out. I think it was just acting. I had done so much reading, and I'd done so much, imagining, and I'd always been in my head. So I think it was just easy for me to say to myself, okay, she's cynical and angry and having a conversation with this other girl who's lost in her romantic fantasies.
That's great. You're just able to imagine. You had a great imagination.
Yeah.
And so you were writing this thesis, this master's thesis, that you were saying you needed all these other things, all these other creative outlets to help you have the juice to write. I'm very curious what your thesis was about.
Okay. So I wrote my master's thesis on the diarist Anais Nin. Mm-hmm. And she kept a diary from the time she was 11 until when she died in her mid-70s. And so I had at that point read everything that had been published. And it was an incredible body of work, the life of a woman over the course of her whole life, basically. And so I was a major in English, and I was a minor in psychology. I was interested in why she was creative. My master's thesis was called Anais Nin and the Psychology of Creativity, because I want to know why people are creative. In her case, I thought she was creative because she had this really catastrophic, traumatic injury to her psychology, really, when she was a child, because her beloved father, who was abusive and a jerk, also abandoned the family. And this was when she was 9 years old that he abandoned the family. And so she was born in 1903. This was, an incredible shame then to her mother and herself and her brothers to have the father abandon the family. He was a great composer in Europe. They came to America as immigrants on a boat. While on the boat, she started writing a diary. I think it was because she was such a depressed little girl. She was 11 at that point. She was such a depressed little girl, and what she wanted to do was create a world in which she could live, and she did that in her diary. So I love the idea that all of us we create our way out of our wounds, you know? I think that even people who don't become artists of one sort or another create a way to deal with a wound. For example, I knew of a woman who lost her mother to cancer, and this woman, when the woman was a child, she lost her mother. She became a health advocate. You know, it just makes sense that you try to solve the wound.
I love that. I'm so curious about your interest in Anais Nin. I'm not saying her name right. I can never say it.
Anais.
Anais.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anais Nin.
Yeah.
And did you just discover her through your English classes, or had you discovered her earlier?
I discovered her. I was in a bookstore when I was 20 years old, and I love diaries, and I saw that this was a young girl keeping a diary from the early 20th century. I'm really interested in that period. I was flipping through the book, and I thought, this kid is an amazing writer. And it ended up that I went on this magic carpet ride, then reading everything she wrote, because I was just fascinated in how she made her way through. You know, she was a wounded immigrant in America. You know, she came through Ellis Island, did not speak English. She and she had this extraordinary talent for writing, but she didn't finish high school. She had to learn English. When coming to Ellis Island, she spoke French and Spanish, but she had to learn English. Her English was always a little skewed. And that's what made her writing so interesting, is because she brought all of these kind of Spanish and French sensibilities to writing English. But she always used it in a weird way, which is a great lesson, really, that, you know, and she did not have even a high school diploma, and she certainly didn't have a college diploma, you know. So I think that coming at it from her place as a total newcomer and novice is what made her special.
For those not familiar with her work, what is it about it that was so cutting edge at the time? What sets her apart from her contemporaries?
So diaries were not respected. They were believed to be a woman's form or just a personal form. And we don't know of that many famous diaries through history. We have Samuel Pepys, you know, we have a few bits and pieces, but she kept a lifelong diary. It was not respected during the most of her life. People said, well, you've got to write novels. And then she did not feel that she could be true because she had such a wild life. She had a wild life.
She was a fascinating woman.
She was a fascinating
many
woman.
lovers, husbands.
Yes. She was trying to free herself because she had come from this pain of having a father. He abandoned the family for one of his young music students. So little Anais felt that she was discarded for the other woman. So she identified, in some ways, grew up identifying or romanticizing the other woman because she loved her father and she wanted to please her father. So psychologically, that did a little number on her. But she got married to a wonderful man. She loved him. But then the marriage, I don't know if she was the sort of person who was ever going to be really fulfilled in love because of these primal wounds she had. She, at a certain point in the marriage, she was going to have a breakdown and ended up having an affair with Henry Miller, the novelist that he wrote Tropic of Cancer. She helped him a lot with his career. Meanwhile, she was not getting a lot of respect. She was an underground writer. And she couldn't write about her love life and her sex life and all this. She never divorced her original husband, her husband. She loved him. I said original husband because she ended up having another great relationship on the other coast. And she could never bring herself to leave the first guy. She cared about him deeply, but she ended up having someone on the other coast with whom she had great romance. And I ended up becoming a member of the Anais Nin Foundation. So I worked in her home digging through her papers and her possessions. I found her stuff. And I wrote a little book about it called Spy in the House of Anais Nin. But I was really interested in how a person gets through their life after a wound. And I think that artists, and really everybody, but I think especially artists, are often finding ways to create their way out of wounds.
Mm-hmm. I am so curious because you have a background in psychology, and I too am so interested in understanding how people change over time. As someone who read her diaries from the age of, 11 to the age of 70, you said?
Yes, 74.
74. What was that evolution of her psyche like? Can you actually see her becoming a different person, a more confident person? Can you talk to us about that?
Yes. When she was a little girl, she was a good little girl. She was, she was basically a product of the Victorian era. She was born in 1903. People were still really under the influence of the Victorian era. So she was a good little girl, a Catholic little girl, and very romantic little girl. So when she and her husband moved from New York to Paris because he was assigned a job at a bank in Paris, she at first was really shocked by Paris. Now, she had come from Europe, but of course she'd lost a lot of that. She was only a little girl when she came to America, and she was deeply influenced by the Puritanism of America. And when she went back to Europe and she lived in Paris, at first she was shocked by what she called the sensuality. She couldn't believe, the way people behaved and the way they spoke and the literature. She couldn't believe it. But then she started to get in the groove of it. And she started to say that somehow the way the French talk about their personal lives, their love lives, maybe their sex lives, doesn't sound dirty the way it does in English. The way it does in America, it sounds dirty. We're Puritans.
I was just going to say, yep, we're Puritans.
We're Puritans. And so she started getting in the groove, and then she went on this mad search for herself because she had to admit to herself that she was not fulfilled in her marriage, that her husband was a very sweet man, but he had been wounded as a child. He had been punished severely for being caught playing doctor, as many children do. He was sent away to live with an aunt.
Wow.
And just scorned. And he never really got over that. They were married for years before she knew about it. He was afraid to tell her. He thought that he was a bad person. And she, when she learned of this, she said, "You're not a bad person. This is all normal." They went to therapists, and they were, among the first that went to therapists because in the 1920s, therapy was brand new. And her therapist told her that her feelings were normal. And so she fortunately had a decent therapist. I think her husband, got a lot out of it too. But then what happened is she decided to free herself completely. She freed herself from the Puritanism of America. She freed herself from Catholicism and from religion. She freed herself from the mores and the morals. She freed herself from everything. She knew that she couldn't act it out openly because, society would not accept it. So she kept it all secret and wrote it all down in her diary.
Wow. That's fascinating. A radical transformation from A to B. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just thinking about your diaries being published, like journals you've written from your whole life being published for the world to read is just mind-boggling.
I know. Yeah. I do a lot of like beating myself up in my journals. I don't want people to see that.
Right.
Why do you do this? I can't believe you did this.
So the first diary was published in the mid-'60s, and she edited out the parts that she did not want the public to know about. But it was such a tremendous hit that the publishers were shocked. And the thing is that she hit the zeitgeist just perfectly, because her writing really wasn't accepted. And then she had her diary published, and she actually started, the first diary that was published started with her life in Paris. It was the mid-'60s. There was a huge outcry for freedom. Women were starting to kind of wake up and say, wait a minute. What about our voices? What about, so young women in general, but young women especially, college students, young men as well, but everyone was craving freedom, and they discovered her, and she became this wild hit. And so suddenly she was asked, well, can you publish the next one and the next one and the next one. And she went on this wild tour of all, going to colleges and universities and having people swarm her. And, that she was like a guru all of a sudden. And so
Interesting.
She kept the faith all through her life that someday she would be understood. And she finally was in her mid-60s.
Wow.
What a story.
What happened in her mid-60s that leads you to say that she was finally understood then? Just because it was the 60s at that point and people could finally completely relate to her journey?
She believed strongly in her writing. She wanted the world to know about her writing. And she was so sad that she felt the world didn't understand her. It hurt her deeply. She never thought something was wrong with her. She always believed in herself and thought, what is wrong? She was so irritated when the great literary figure, Edmund Wilson, became her friend. He very paternalistically offered to help her learn to write. And she wrote about that in her diaries in the 1940s. And she just thought it was hilarious and ridiculous that this, very fancy man who was the editor, I believe, of Fitzgerald, of F. Scott Fitzgerald's work, I believe it was, he was offering to, she just was like, in her diaries, she just wrote this in it, she essentially said, this fool, so she never quit believing in herself. And then when the world believed in her and they wanted more, and these young people were coming to her, she described what they wore. It was so cute. She said, they have long hair and they wear these big, she said they're very slim, and they wear these belts, and they all wear boots. And it was so cute, that she was kind of fascinated with them because she thought they were very romantic figures. And so she was gratified to be finally understood. It felt to her like a wave of love coming to her.
Well, and it feels like she clearly resonates with you.
Yes.
And so I'm just curious about that journey for you of being so drawn to her and why you wanted to write your thesis about her and where you were going with that. Like, were you looking to become a professor after that or
essayist, potentially?
Essayist or...
I always wanted to be a writer. I did not know how that would go. I didn't know what kind of writer I would be. I didn't know how to go about it. And part of my problem was that I had a very religious mother who I've just started talking about this very recently, actually. You heard, I think, me first talk about this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, for the longest time, I really couldn't talk about it. It was sort of too painful. But a very, very religious mother who was a member of a very out there, kind of extreme church. And they believed the world was about to end. And I was not supposed to go to college, and I was not supposed to waste my time reading anything but church literature. So even to read non-church literature, like I walked down to the library and I would get books. I remember I got East of Eden by Steinbeck, and I got in trouble for doing that at age 13 because it's like wasting your time. It's a big old thick, wonderful book, right?
Such a good book.
It's so good.
It was my favorite for a long time.
God, I know. Oh, and the movie is
Good
just to die with James Dean. You're supposed to spend your time reading the church literature, and I was not supposed to go to college, and so I went to my father and I kind of begged him to allow me to go to college. So he let me go to the free community college. There I, had wonderful teachers who believed in me, and I was writing really good papers. They were telling me that I was writing really good papers, but I had no clue. How do you become a writer? I don't know how to become how do you do that for a living? And my first jobs were, things like, being a hostess at a restaurant, or I worked in record stores and I worked in bookstores, and I just didn't know how to make any of it happen. When I came across Anais Nin's diary, I think what I sensed right away is that she was a wounded child, and I had been a wounded child, and I had just left my mother's church. Now, can't leave my mother's church, you can only get kicked out. It's like one of those things where if you try to leave, they shun you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I was, they do this whole rigmarole to try to get you to stay by making life as painful as possible for you, and making sure you're cut off from all the people you've ever known. And, the family member's not supposed to talk to you anymore. So I was deeply wounded and probably very lonely and scared. And I was about 20.
Wow. And your mom followed with that tradition.
She did the whole thing. And I was kind of in shock with grief, because I left her religion basically on my 21st birthday and moved out and lived with a family that they let me live there and take care of their kid who had spina bifida and clean the house and have a room. But I kind of was putting myself through school, and I was in a bookstore one day and I saw this diary and I thumbed through it and I was like, this kid's very wounded, and she's been rejected by her father. And so I related to that. Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't know what side is up. She's so wounded. So I related, and I wanted to know, how did you make it, Anais? How did you make it?
Yeah.
And so she made it by writing. And so I kind of thought, you know what, maybe it's not about a big career. Maybe this is just a way to survive.
Oh,
wow.
That's
Artist
it right there.
Survival.
Maybe it's not about a big career. Maybe it's just how to survive.
Yeah.
It's about survival.
That's really powerful.
Thank you. I'm honored you shared that with us. Thank you. This is something you're newly talking about.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, and I'm curious about the community college history, if I may, because I did read that about you, that you teach at community colleges and that's where you went and you like giving back to that community. So you already hit on it. I wanted to ask you about that and what draws you to teaching at community colleges. And you just gave it. Thank you. Or maybe there's more.
Well,
yeah.
I had great teachers at the community college. I'll never forget the teachers I had at the community college. One of the teachers kept me after class because she could see, I was a good writer, but she could see that I was wounded. And she kind of asked me about it, and I burst into tears, and she just encouraged me. So I thought, I would like to give back to my community. And so, for example, I have a class this semester. This is a normal writing class. It's a regular composition class. And I see that the students their eyes light up because they're excited to be understood and appreciated and heard and seen. And I know that if I maybe just plant a little seed or give them a little bit of confidence, like I asked them on the first day, what are you doing in the class? Some of them wrote, well, I want to be a nurse. And so I have to pass this class so I can be a nurse. So look, if I can help them become a nurse, they're going to help a bunch of other people. It just fans out, So I believe in this sort of thing. It's like anything you don't have to be a community college teacher, but any kindness or any good thing you do fans out.
And amplifying positive messages and artist voices, I think, just ripples, right? It has a ripple effect in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your purpose feels so rooted in generosity. I don't know, not to try to define, that's just what's coming up for me. You just have such a generous spirit.
Oh,
absolutely.
The way you look at creativity and what you think, how you think it affects the world is just wonderful to hear. That it's so helpful, because it is. And I think sometimes I can lose sight of that. I can lose sight of that in this wild industry in LA of trying to make it and trying to do what you want to do and just try to make a living at what you love. You can lose a lot of that. You're bringing me back. That's why I'm going to get emotional again. You keep just bringing me back to like the roots of why we love this and why we do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely. And also how it's absolutely necessary for everybody. Like the nursing student that you're talking about. It's vital to our very survival as a species. It's not just like, some frivolous thing, right?
Yeah, which creativity can be brushed off.
It can be perceived that way. It's like, artists are not as important in society
or
as
not
doctors
as serious.
or lawyers
or not as
or
serious.
economists. Actually, art is just as important, and some could argue even more so than other professions, in that it speaks to the human soul and spirit, not just to the like, I want to make money with this hedge fund or,
oh my God,
real estate. I want to buy that house. It's like we're actually trying to examine the human condition and help others do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made me think of the episode of The Studio. I finally watched The Studio.
Oh, good.
And it made me think of the episode. Have you watched The Studio on Apple?
It's
a fantastic episode where he goes to the dinner with the doctor and he keeps trying to tell all the doctors in the room how important what he does is. And they're like, well, we save lives. It's an absolutely
they keep
hilarious
rolling their eyes being like,
what you do is not nearly as important. But he gets his point across at the end. And you're like, no, creativity, art, these things are very important.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was very much a tangent.
No, it was great. Well, I'll go ahead, Kim.
So this matter of generosity, I think we all have the dark in us too, and we all have the pessimism or the anger or whatever. I mean, I definitely feel that every time I look at the news these days. It's like,
Sure.
Yeah. But if you get too lost in that, then what are we here for? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing? It's like you've got to keep your eye on the prize, which is the goodness, the experience of being here, the beauty. We can't close our eyes. I guess that wouldn't be safe and that wouldn't be smart. We have to be aware there's dark out there. But if you get so mad or so cynical or so skeptical that you can no longer see the beauty, then you're going to have a miserable life,
Yeah.
Yep.
And who is that hurting but yourself?
That's right.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier, which is that as you were working on this thesis, you were taking belly dancing classes and acting classes and all sorts. You were sparking your creativity in all sorts of different ways, and that was helping you finish this thesis. Could you speak a little bit more to that, how these different arts can complement each other?
I think that whatever you're drawn to has a purpose. So when I was getting kind of stuck with my master's thesis, I just thought, you know what, I just need to do some other stuff because I'm just feeling so like dried up here. And so I thought, well, what do I want to do? And I kind of made a list. And one of the things on my list was I've always wanted to take belly dance classes, and I saw that there's a belly dance class. Well, I kind of figured it out later because I went to the belly dance class. I loved it. And then I was on a mad, 6-year journey of exploring belly dancing. And I always knew, it's not that I'm going to be a professional belly dancer or anything like that. But I figured it out. At one point, I was like, I know why this has so much draw for me. My mom's church, there was such a negative message about the body, women, sexuality, and all that. And the first time you go to the belly dance class and they're like, shake it, and you're like, no, we're not supposed to do that. We can't do that. You're supposed to hold, everything. No, you're shaking it around and stuff. And it's, women in the class and stuff, but we're all laughing and we're all, and it's like, oh, you're all like, when you're getting this negative message about your femininity, about your body, about your sexuality, you're all just this tight, like scared, shamed person. You go into the belly dance class and the teacher is just like, hey, you free it up, and then the reason comes to you. It's because I had a bunch of pain and negativity about this. That's why I'm doing this. And I just kept doing it until I solved it.
And is there something to be said about giving yourself permission to fail in the belly dancing class or whatever other class so that you can come back to your writing with this kind of sense of humility, right? Before we started rolling the cameras, I just briefly talked to you about the Robert Rodriguez. I went to a talk of his and how he forces his actor, doesn't force, but how he compels his actors to create a painting while they're making a movie. And they can be free to be a bad painter, even though there is no such thing, right? Because it's like they're just like free to create in this one space. And then that might just give them the permission to be free and not so constrained and not be bound to, I have to be successful in this other space.
I think that is such a genius assignment to give people to make a painting when they're going to be on your movie set making your movie. I think that's such a great idea. And I suppose partly, since it's a visual medium, I suppose partly what he was doing is asking them to express themselves in colors and shapes and to see what comes out, and that would be then something that they could draw on, is to remember, okay, I feel red, or I feel yellow, or I feel sharp, blue, whatever it is. I think that's really smart. And it could have been something else. Maybe he could have asked them to do some other art, or dance, do a dance. Maybe that would have been good too. But the painting makes a lot of sense to me. It's not that they had to do like you said, a good painting. There's no such thing. It's all subjective.
It's also subjective.
A 3-year-old doesn't know what a good painting is.
Yeah, so some people look at Pollock and they're like, I could do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's no art to that.
Yeah, but he was the first to, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always think of Van Gogh because he kept at it even though people didn't buy his paintings. He kept at it his whole life. He didn't know that however many years after he died that people would be spending $100 million, at auction to buy his stuff. He didn't know that. He did it out of passion, out of what he saw. Like he got to sit in fields of sunflowers. That's not a bad life.
Nope.
And people try, this is America where we boil everything down to product and to, obviously capitalist society, we boil everything down to how much money do you make? Did you sell it? Blah, blah. That's sad to me. Did you make money doing it? That doesn't matter. Did you feel joy when you did it? How about that? Or did somebody else feel joy? Or have meaning? Or did you have any great epiphanies or something like that? How about that?
Yeah. Much better gauge of success.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Speaking of Anais Nin, she found success later in life after she had been a diarist for, decades. Do you resonate with that in the sense of Before Sunrise, Before Sunset becoming this cultural iconic films later, not necessarily when, because, they found success later. So I wonder if there's a parallel there between you and her that you can speak to.
It's funny, when the films first came out, of course, it was exciting and it was great, but it wasn't the big, Before Sunrise wasn't the tremendous phenomenon. It was kind of a quiet little, inexpensively made art film. And it the way, when I remember having a meeting in Hollywood, and the person said to me, let's see how much money it made the opening weekend. It didn't do that great. So it wasn't considered a big deal. Of course, those were not my values. So I was kind of wondering why the guy was saying that. Those were his values. But I thought, you and I are, but many years later, my first real foray into social media was getting on Instagram. And I very kind of shyly at one point said, I co-wrote this movie, and there was sort of a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I was a little bit surprised by the reaction, and people wanted, do you have photos, blah, blah, blah. And I started figuring out, people are really into this. And so then it started building up a little bit more. And then people were asking me questions about creativity and how did you do that? And I think it's a zeitgeist thing where people are now romanticizing the period before the internet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, very much so.
They're craving connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the movie was about connection. So,
that dovetails for me a question I had, a last question about the movie. What is the Vienna of our times, or what is, for now, if you were to do this movie now, where would you set it? Because Austin is no longer the Austin you grew up in. Vienna, I don't know if it's this romantic, does this place even exist in the world anymore? This place where artists are front and center, and if so, what would that place be?
The first thing I thought when you asked that is it's in space. It's that you find your people through, as bad as algorithms can be, you find your people maybe through the algorithm. Mm-hmm. You find people who you are on the same page with. And so maybe you have relationships in space where I don't even know if you know how old they are or what country they live in or what gender they are or whatever, but you have these conversations and you meet people. I've had some of those where someone on the other side of the world says something to me that kind of, and I say something honest back, and it's like we have this little moment. Mm-hmm. And it's like we are having a little walk down a cobblestone alley in space.
Virtually is where you can find community now, if you can't find it in the real world. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's an interesting take.
I would love to dive into your writing process. I remember the talk that I went to, you talked about writing from a place of empathy. Could you speak a little bit more about what you meant by that and how writers can access that?
I start with character rather than plot, I think. And I try to understand the character's reality, their feelings, their problems, their motivations. So now this is interesting when you've got, bad characters, right? You've got a serial killer, but you have to get in their skin, at least in your mind. You have to write out of feeling them. If your character's like, I don't know, they're a cartoon character, an animal, an alien, you have to understand where they are coming from. So I think creative people can do this pretty easily. I think that they are capable of going into just an understanding somebody else's reality. So that's at least where I go. And while I'm writing, I feel like I'm channeling somebody else, and I feel like I forget that I'm there. I forget who I am. It's just coming through, and that to me is the greatest feeling. Isn't it?
Yes, I felt that
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's freedom.
It's such freedom. I've listened to words I've written because I've become a writer as well. And I've listened to, I was a playwright at first, and I've heard backstage the lines being said on stage that I've written. And sometimes I sit there and I'm like, where did I even come up with that? That was not mine.
Mm-hmm.
That came from somewhere else. I don't know how I found that. It's the exact same thing. Sorry to interject. It's just I've had that feeling.
Yeah, because you were like a conduit for something, which I think is the same, when we dream, how you dream things and then later you're like, how did I come up with that? It's the same thing.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Some people just have that, they can open. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I think it's possible, especially creative people can do that. I think because they can suspend judgment.
Mm-hmm. Along those lines, then, how do you?
Big part of it.
How do you get yourself to write when you don't feel like you're in that channeling state, or what do you work on when you're like, the channel's turned off right now, but I still have to sit at my desk and write? Or how do you tap into it?
Well, if I were really feeling bogged down and I felt like I couldn't write, I might be tired. I might need to read a book. I might need to go on a little outing and go to a beautiful garden or a museum. I might need to take a nap. I pretty much start every writing project I ever have with doing a mad cleaning job of my house. And I'm pretty sure not only is it avoidance, it's preparation in my mind, but I have to get everything around me like sorted, and I get really like OCD about it. And I think it's because I'm putting everything in order because some part of my brain is preparing. And it knows that when you're done with this cleaning, you're going to sit down and it's So I try to listen to myself, and if a part of me is saying, I'm tired, I want to take a nap, you let myself take a nap, But then at some point I sit down, okay, and this is what I do. I say, Kim, you're allowed to write a piece of crap. And by the way, if you only want to work for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, that's fine. Just do 15 or 30 minutes. It just gets a ball rolling if I tell myself those things. And then somehow the next day it's a little easier, and the next day it's a little easier. And then after doing that, my subconscious starts cooperating with me, and I wake up in the morning with ideas and excitement because I've gotten in the groove. And then eventually I get to the point where I cannot be torn away from it. So I just know it's going to be a hard start. It's like starting a cold car in the middle of, Canada or something. It's just like, just won't start. And I'm just like, oh God, I just keep on gently, warm it up, and then it'll go.
I love that. Yeah. I can
that's
totally relate to that.
Yeah,
the cold car.
That's a good one.
Are there any other personal experiences that have shaped the kinds of stories you want to tell? I know you spoke a little bit about your childhood and your relationship with your mom and, being in a very religious environment. Is there anything else personally that might have informed your creative process or the stories you want to bring to the world?
Right now with this, the way things are going in the world, I see a big arc going on. I mean, really, it's like the twist. It's like, I feel like maybe we're coming to the end of something, and it's so interesting how people feel it. They feel this, and it's making people really want to live because they're scared. They're like, what is going on? What is going on? It feels dangerous. It feels like, it feels ominous. And so I'm always looking at big picture stuff. Like, what are we doing here? And it makes me want to tell like the big story. So I think a lot about that, that Buddhist monk who was a philosopher, and I'm not going to say his name right, Thich Nhat Hanh. And he said that when you're overwhelmed what you need to do is to get really small and to get very preoccupied with a small thing. And I think sometimes telling a story about what you're feeling in that moment gets you there. Like if you sit down and you say your journal and you're like, what am I feeling right in this moment? It's not easy to nail it, but I think that that's the sort of thing I want to do, is to get to that really important but hard to get at feeling of the moment.
That's really beautiful.
That's a great answer. That really touches on how she's meeting the moment. You know, we talk about that a lot in the podcast with people. Like, how are we meeting the current moment we're in, the political climate, the state of the industry? We've been asking a lot of people about that, and I feel like you've kind of touched on that a little bit.
And how you deal with the anxiety, because in this day and age, there's so much anxiety-inducing activity around you, right?
Yeah.
So you deal with it by getting small and granular and
yes,
letting all of those emotions and frustrations out on the page.
And appreciating the day, I guess, because I can remember conversations I've had just in the last week with people friends who are frightened, you know, like, oh God, Hollywood's changing. Well, yeah, it is. You know, it is changing, and life is change. And, you know, you have to roll with it. You have to roll with it and be flexible. But I think oftentimes the big catastrophe does bring opportunity. So in the moment, try to enjoy what's beautiful about the moment and get granular. Like you said, that's a great word. And be flexible and roll with it. Because my experience was, I wanted to be a writer. Went to an audition. It ended up leading to something that led to something that led to something. And I've often heard you need to write down very specifically what your goals are and go into great detail. And I'm sure there's a lot of value to that, but I also think there's value in having a general thing that you want, that you don't know how to get there, what it is, you don't know any specifics. You just know, I see a kind of picture, I want to be there, I really don't know what the steps are, how to get there. I just see myself happily, you know, in this situation. I think there's value to a big general, like I'm going to be a happy artist, you know, maybe that's it. Or I'm going to help people, or, you know, maybe sometimes not having the specifics. Because I think the subconscious is smarter than we are, that it knows it knows better. And sometimes it'll put something together in a much smarter way than I know I could. And if I look at it and go, oh, that happened the way it really should have happened. I could never have come up with that, but I did it. And it's just because I let the subconscious take the reins, you know?
And if you get so fixated on like, I want to be this specific kind of artist in this specific way, well, what if you're wrong? What if you're actually better suited to be a painter versus a sculptor, and you never even consider painting because you were so fixated on your initial vision for yourself, is what you're saying. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Speaking my language, I love it.
Yeah.
People are good at lots of things. I mean, I think maybe modern life has made us like specialization idiots, but we're good at lots of things.
Yes,
we can do a whole bunch of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and even if you find a passion in your 20s, that doesn't mean you're going to have the same passion for it in your 60s.
Right.
You could love it in your 20s and hate it in your 60s, because we're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And it could be a hobby that turns into a job. It could be, you know, a job that gets left behind for another job. It could be, we hired you to do this, but it turns out you're good at this, you know? I think that having like an open idea is in some ways a good thing, you know?
We love to ask people what they're curious about at the moment. And I feel like we've talked about a lot of things that could be said that you're curious about. But is there anything specifically you're thinking about creatively, intellectually, anything that you're just curious about right now?
I'm definitely curious about how people get into cults. I have been looking at this for the last few years.
Okay.
Of course, my mother was in a cult. And so I feel like I have personal experience with it, but I never did a big study of it. And I've been learning more about it recently. I'm reading a book right now by a woman who was swept into basically a cult of one. It's called The Girl with the Duck Tattoo.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yes.
Did the cult leader have a duck tattoo?
No, she has a duck tattoo.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's such a cute play on The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
She was a wonderful, wonderful restaurant owner. She had one of the very, very first vegan gourmet restaurants in New York City. She was very successful, she was a star. Somehow she was just in a lonely place, and she got swept into a cyber relationship with somebody. See, this is where it gets a little bit scary. And somehow he tapped into her vulnerabilities, and somehow she ended up giving him her money, and she ended up going to prison for a while. So I'm reading her story. It is so beautifully written, but it's getting into the psychology. This is a person who was very successful, very intelligent. She had been successful in a number of areas. The thing is that she felt a loneliness, and I believe my mother felt a loneliness, and I think that's why my mother got into her cult. You know, the nuclear family might not work for some people. I think my mom just needed more people, a tribe, you know, and so I'm really curious. I'm going on the ride in this wonderful memoir, The Girl with the Duck Tattoo. Very curious about her experience of getting into a cult of one.
And also how she got out of it. Because that also really interests me too. Is like, how does someone snap out of it when they're so deep in it?
Well, she went to prison, that might have helped.
She went to prison.
Get her out of it. I don't know.
Yeah. I haven't gone on the whole journey yet.
You don't know yet? Okay.
I would say I'm maybe a fourth of the way through the book. And so I haven't got to the part where she's really clear yet. But I think she will end up being successful still, because she has it in her. But she was vulnerable, and someone tapped into her. You know, so a lot of people, I mean, this is not a rare thing, right? This happens.
Yeah,
we're following cults. We follow cults. We get lost in cults.
Cult of personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more magnetic someone else, the more that they can sometimes have a cult-like following, where you're like, how is this political leader getting this cult-like following?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's really scary.
Yeah.
Maybe
wow.
not,
Thank you for sharing. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a quick fun question. Can you tell us a story that you feel defines you as a creative or as a person? Maybe gives us an insight into your personality?
Just like a little anecdote that shows us a little bit of who you are, even though we just spent a wonderful 2 hours talking to you about who you are.
I think that buying a plane ticket and a Eurail pass with only a little backpack that had my Let's Go book and some paperback novels and a few changes of clothes. I think that sort of, with no real money, just I saved up to do that. And I think that kind of sums up something about me, because that ended up leading to a thousand other things. That was a sort of education that I think, it's not on a diploma, but going on a trip by yourself. And, because we didn't have cell phones, I mean, I hardly have any photos of this trip, but I think that kind of sums up a lot about my personality, that I think we're alone in life, even with our cell phones. We're alone in life. You're in yourself, you're in your, and you go on a trip and you have experiences and you learn things. I mean, it's an arc. And if you meet somebody cool on the trip and you get off and sightsee with them for a day or whatever the case is, that's a twist. Or you know, as for example, one of the things that happened to me was while I was on the trip, I saw Bob Dylan in London. I sat next to some cute guy. You know, the guy and I liked each other. At the end of the you know, we had to go our separate ways at the end of the concert, but at the end of it, he like spontaneously sort of kissed me. And you know, we were both kind of shocked by it, but you know, we've got a twist, you know, it's like, you know, so, I think I believe in maybe just going on the ride.
Mm-hmm. And there's a fearlessness to you.
That's great.
Because I presume you was 19, 20,
like
you were
21.
pretty young when you did this, right?
Yeah.
You can argue that there is a necessary fearlessness to creating art. There's been studies that actually show that artists are more okay with uncertainty than people that don't pursue the arts. Mm-hmm. So the more okay with uncertainty you are, the more likely you are to have a insane profession where things are up and down, and the big unknown is actually exciting as opposed to terrifying.
Yeah.
I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done that, there would be no Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, right? It would have been a different movie. No, because I think you were the one that was the genesis behind let them be on a train and meet while traveling. So, I mean, the movie might have existed, but it could have been a different film altogether, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I'm a pretty locked down, like I like structure, I have calendars, you know, but within that, I like a lot of freedom, you know, like, okay, we're going to do this today, we're going to, you know, but here's my schedule, blah, blah, blah. But what do you feel like between that, you know? Mm-hmm. I think if you don't allow yourself that freedom within that, you're really going to be an unhappy person. Mm-hmm. So some structure I think of it as the trellis, but you've got the vine growing whichever way it wants.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
That's great. Because you were really, again, resonating with me with a general idea of what you want and what you're pursuing. Because I think lately I've just been really beating myself and being hard on myself for being a very much just like going with the flow, like what comes into my life I follow. But also to look at the other side of it, I'm also somewhat pursuing that if that's what's coming into my life. If these certain things are arriving, I'm putting myself there to get them. And then I just sort of run with it. And I've just been reflecting lately and being like, what if I had had more of a structured plan? What if I had followed more of a gone to art school, drama school, the way some of my friends did, and followed this very structured path, and that was not who I was at all. So basically, you're just making me feel better about my life choices. That's what I'm trying to say, is that there is this just joy to running with what's in front of you and what's coming with and what you feel like. You know, I didn't want to go to drama school. I always knew I wanted to be an actor. I didn't want to go to drama school. I wanted to leave the Southeast. I was from Atlanta, and I knew I wanted to get out of the Southeast and see something. So I moved to Colorado. I went to school in Colorado and had the time of my life.
Yeah, it's embrace the fluidity.
Yeah.
Rather than think it's a negative, right? Embrace the unknown rather than, always have a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the way you decided that you didn't particularly want to be the schooling, you know, because I respect that a lot. I really respect that. A lot of my all-time favorite artists, they don't even have high school diplomas sometimes, but they didn't get the formal training.
Yeah.
You know, do you know that Paul McCartney can't read music?
Yes. Isn't that wild?
Yes.
I did not know
that.
He
and he and Lennon met in high school. They were high school buds.
Yeah.
They went to,
Wow. And there's something to be said about that chemistry that gets forged when you're a kid.
Yeah.
That you,
right.
Yeah. But the fact that he can't read
with you.
Yeah. That he can't read music is wild.
Yep.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He made his own way.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, I did go to school and I did get a degree, but it wasn't in acting.
Right. What was it in?
There's journalism.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But journalism is going and interviewing and listening to people.
Yeah.
So that makes total sense to me. Those go right together.
Now, that's interesting. And see, I love that there's just such a fluidity to the way you look at things. I would love to open my brain more about this, because to me, that's more rigid. I'm like, journalism is not acting, but you're right. They're in the same world.
You're listening to people.
Mm-hmm.
You're pursuing people's stories. Then with acting, you're just acting it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And don't they say, and please correct me if I'm wrong because they're both actresses, the key thing that wonderful actors do is they're great listeners. You can tell they're listening, fully invested in the moment. And they might have other things going on in their head, but they're still fully in it, right?
Well, because there's the tenet, acting is reacting.
Yeah.
That's really your bottom line. And so it's, if you're not listening, what are you reacting to? Are you reacting to yourself? And then people can see it's not authentic. There has to be an authentic connection. And you can get that by listening, by really hearing someone and really seeing them and being present with them.
And having your organic feeling come up.
Which I very clearly do pretty easily.
Well, exactly. I think so.
I love this about Anna. I wish I could do that.
Well, it's like your feelings are your instrument, and you have a grip on the instrument.
Yes.
See, some people don't, right?
Yeah.
Some people have no control of their instrument.
That's true.
Or
That's
we keep all these emotions inside and they very rarely come out. And when they come out, they scare us because we're not used to having them fluidly go in and out of existence the way that an actor does.
Right. Which makes me think of what she was saying earlier. I love, which creatives are open. We have these conversations. We'll talk about these dark things. We'll talk about these things because they're interesting and they're not scary to us. They're just, it's life.
Yeah.
It's this experience we want to have.
Yeah. And going back to the idea of creating from a place of empathy, that journalistic tendency, there's a direct through line in that for me.
Of wanting to understand people.
Wanting to understand and coming at it from the place of investigation and curiosity. I want to get to the heart of the story and talk to all these different people and not just put my own objective or put my own perspective into the story, having that humility to be let me investigate, let me ask these questions and then arrive at a conclusion. I love the idea of approaching writing that way, asking your characters, where do you want to go versus telling your characters where to go.
Oh yeah. The word investigation is a great word. It is. It's you don't have the answer, you have the question. That I think is a big key to creative work. You don't go into it going, I have the answer here. You go in, I am going to explore and root around until I arrive at some sort of answer.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's great. And I think a key piece that I hadn't thought a lot about is something you said earlier, removing judgment. That's huge. That's a massive piece of it. A creative life.
Yeah.
A really open and adaptable creative life.
The judge really kills us.
Yep.
I mean, we need the judge for certain things or else we're going to get in trouble. We have to pay our taxes and we have to, drive on the correct side of the road and all. But the judge kills you in creative work. It's mean. It's wrong. You're going to be embarrassed. It's just mean.
And it kills the collaborator. I think of the best showrunners, right? That create a writer's room in which people are open to say the bad idea and they're not going to be judged by it. It's the same thing with directors too. If you have a very authoritative director that's well, no, let's go it again. I don't want to, 20 takes, 30 takes of this very simple thing. The actor starts to shut down and be oh, well, I guess I'm doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
Versus someone who can be it's okay. You're free to explore.
Free to fail.
Free to fail.
Try the thing. Say the thing. Do the thing.
Speaking of that, I remember reading that Charlie Kaufman, oh my God, such a brilliant screenwriter and director. He was in writers' rooms and he said he would be extremely quiet. And it's Who are these idiots that aren't tapping into his brilliance?
Wow.
I bet they were a bunch of, people who were aggressively, probably like very that judgmental brain. Like here's a clever, and here they had this guy who was maybe, afraid to talk or something. Cause I met him once.
You did?
Oh God. And he just briefly, but he seems shy and sweet.
Wow.
And he's a freaking genius.
Yeah.
But, right. So I just can imagine like he wouldn't be the guy who would be like, let me bust in with my ideas, everybody. He'd be the quiet guy. And if you're like going to investigate and you're going to be open, you're going to be like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking, to him? And he's going to come out with genius,
Yep.
Yeah, that's very true. We've actually talked about this, how some writers' rooms are this environment where it's constant talking. So if you're not comfortable interrupting, then you're not going to get a pitch in, which means the showrunner isn't going to notice that you have something to contribute. So you better get comfortable interrupting. And it goes to something we've talked about as well, that unfortunately in this industry, the more aggressive personalities and the more confident personalities and the more salesman-like personalities get rewarded over the quiet genius, because the quiet genius isn't trying to oversell themselves or be like, and then this is how we're going to sell it. I think that there's something to be said about how in Hollywood, you're kind of expected not only to create the work of genius, but to tell the people in power how to sell it by the way you talk about it.
I know.
So
Oof.
there's that
That's
too.
daunting.
Yeah.
It is. That is daunting.
Yeah.
It is daunting because, the creative is often very sensitive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think with time, after you've been knocked around a few times, you get a little bit better.
Yeah. You have to it's a matter of survival.
Yeah.
No, that is a piece of it. That is a part of it.
I mean, if you, I've been rereading Save the Cat. He spends like a good portion of that book talking about how you need to go out and pitch people your log line, a stranger in an elevator. Tell them your log line. If their eyes gloss over, it's not a good log line for your next feature. If they get it, if they're like, oh, I want to see that movie, then it is. But it's like, you have to do that as a writer. Sell a stranger on your idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if the person you're talking to, what if their eyes gloss over though, because they're, a proctologist who doesn't go see movies? And I mean,
right?
That's a really good
It could
point.
be for any reason.
Yeah.
And it goes back to like, why are you creating art? Are you creating art to sell it to that proctologist, or are you creating art for your own satisfaction, for your own sense of fulfillment?
You have to believe in it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Some people don't like Before Sunrise. And I came to peace with this a long time ago. A long time ago, I was like, do I like it? How do I feel? What would my criticisms be? And there are other people out there that had different taste. That's fine. I might not like things they love. That's fine. It's all subjective.
It's all okay.
It's all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no answer, There's no answer like this is the great, no. No, you are allowed to have your feelings and your tastes, period.
Yeah. I often think of movies as a time capsule. And
exactly.
there's nothing good or bad or wrong about a time capsule. It's just preserving what humanity was going through in the specific moment in time, and the emotions we were having and the challenges we were having, good or bad or ugly. It's, it's just beautiful regardless.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if we look at that without judgment and investigate it and then see, okay, well, at that time people were, I don't know, we look at certain movies and say, how could Rocky box Adrian in and ask to kiss her? So I have to explain to my students, it was a different time. He wasn't a rapist. This was a very beautiful and romantic scene in the late 70s.
At the time that it came out,
It was a gorgeous scene, and it was a great romance.
Think about that.
They're just like, he didn't get permission, and it's like, it's a different time. Understand the context.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that with Before Sunrise, and not in that sense, but in the sense of, like, as we're sitting here talking about it, like, God, what a time in film, what a time in cinema. All of these independent films were greenlit and given money. These small budget beautiful films like this one were able to be made. And I wonder, like, I mean, before Sunrise could be made today, but would it have been made with the backing that it had?
The studio.
The studio.
Was
yeah.
it a studio movie?
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or am I...
Yeah, but so I guess it was a combination. Yeah, it was a studio movie, but I guess Rick found the funding in Vienna and then
Oh, that's right. You
linked
told
it
us
up.
that. Okay.
I don't really know.
Yeah, so maybe I'm misspeaking on that, but it was a time where other, smaller films were getting made by studios in a time where it just doesn't feel like that's happening
Big
as much
scope.
now,
Yeah.
So even that was a product of its time in a certain way with what the industry was like at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know William Goldman, the great screenwriter who wrote so many great, I mean, he wrote like Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid.
Oh,
His big quote is, nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
So he people would ask, what does a producer do? How does Hollywood work? He'd say, nobody knows anything. And that's
true.
what it is now. That's probably what it's always been, but it's really the case now.
Yeah.
Which is why coming into it with a naivete can help you, right?
Yes.
Because then you can be like, I don't know what I don't know. So I'm just going to throw my name in the hat for this film as a director, even though I haven't directed anything.
That's
or
right.
Whatnot. Yeah.
That's right.
I like thinking of that enthusiasm as naivete. I don't know. I'm sitting with that. I'm sitting with that if we're defining it like that. But that's interesting.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know. So if you were to think it through and say, I can't do this, I don't have these credentials, I don't have this degree, I don't have this experience. If you just show up, well, I mean, maybe they're just desperate. Maybe someone dropped out that day and they're like, let's get her. Let's just come on, just give it a shot here in the writer's room or whatever.
Or maybe they love your enthusiasm, or you sold it better than anyone because you believed it more than anyone.
Yeah.
I think that this is something I've been grappling with recently, the belief in yourself. You saying, I'm the only person that can tell this story. Oftentimes that can be the one thing that gets you the job. Your fervent belief and only I can do this and I'm the most well prepared. And I might not have all the experience, but I know this story.
Yeah.
I'm curious how you feel about that, of that is such a thing we're told, and it is very much a thing of like, you've got to be able to pitch your project in a way that's like, I am the person to tell this story at this time for this reason with these resources. Like, I'm curious how you feel about that adage.
Yeah, because I was raised never to brag and not to make statements like that. So it's been a long time for me. It's basically it's taken me a long, long time to get to the point where I feel like I can show confidence. Feeling it is hard enough, but displaying it outwardly, I was raised that you don't do that. That was just considered very bad form. My parents were from small towns in South Dakota, and that was not considered the way to be. So yeah, and I do feel like Hollywood, like you were saying, Hollywood rewards the confident person. They are the loudest person. They may not have what the quiet person has, but they seem to on the surface. And so yeah, I think that that's a tough one for me, but it's getting easier and easier. The more I go on, it's better. And for women, it's a tough thing.
Yeah, I was going to add that in. Yeah.
It's tough.
And not even just to be able to do it and say it, it's not received as well from women either.
Yeah, it's not. It sounds strident.
Ooh, great word.
Yeah.
Strident.
Yeah, it just sounds like off-putting. Like that, Yeah, so I think we're getting more and more comfortable now. I feel it with, I feel like women are coming out more and more. I mean, they have been for a long time, but I know from reading Anais Nin that they were doing it in their own way in the 1920s. They felt like they were the cutting edge with their short skirts and smoking cigarettes and the whole getting their hair cut and the whole bit. But
they were,
absolutely were. So I mean, we're always on this journey.
Yeah.
We're always on the journey, and we give birth to ourselves over our whole dang lives.
Yep. Over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's getting easier. for me to do that confidence thing, I think. You know, I do feel that people go through passages, and I think getting older, I think this is one of the great secrets that people don't know, is that if you keep your health, then when you get older, things are great. There's nothing to fear, nothing to be ashamed of. And I think this last ism, which is ageism, is starting to fall. You know, I think it's starting to fall. I think people are now seeing, hey, there's a lot of wisdom. In fact, I read an article, was it in the Washington Post? Scientists looked at what happened to the brain over the course of a life. And they said that, yes, as you get older, you do become wiser. You may lose a little bit of short-term memory as you're, say, in your 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. You may have lost a little bit of, but they said, but you have this depth of wisdom that younger people do not have. It's
better
real.
Judgment,
Yeah.
less compulsion. You're not acting on impulse as much, right?
Yeah.
So you're acting on your past experiences and how they're shaping your current choices, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real. Wisdom is real. And also you start to lose your reluctance to say what you really think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just start coming
That's
out.
that's a big one for me. Yeah. It's like talking about the female journey. It's like the immigrant journey is a whole nother thing of like feeling like you don't belong here, and then like slowly, working your way out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have more patience with people as I've gotten older too, because that wisdom shows you that like everybody's got a story. Everybody's been through something.
Yeah.
So if someone's acting out and having a moment, give them a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might pass. I mean, in general, in like small situations.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a big thing, but like I'm finding I have more patience than I used to.
Yeah.
And more patience for yourself too.
And more patience with myself,
I was
too.
harsher
Yeah.
on myself
Yeah.
when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
this
thanks
is
for
great.
taking us
This
on
is-
this
Oh my gosh,
journey.
this has been
Oh, it's been
my God,
fun.
We've been talking forever.
We've been talking for so long. You have taken us on such a journey. You're
we
so
were-
generous.
Yeah.
Again,
We were on a train ride.
we were on a train ride. We were on our own train ride through Inglewood.
So are there any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Oh, it's just been such a pleasure to be here with you guys, and you asked such great questions. You're obviously coming from places of great wisdom yourselves. So, it's fun to talk to two smart, feeling, empathetic women. That's really feels good.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
That was a lovely
And
compliment.
likewise. Yeah.
We are honored by
This
you
time
spending
flew
this time
by.
with us. Thank you.
Yeah,
You're
it felt
welcome.
like a ping pong game sometimes,
Yeah.
which is the best feeling in the world when you can lose yourself in the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel so
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah.
It really
This
meant
was
a lot.
wonderful.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much for
Great.
coming.
Thanks for asking me. It's I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Us
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hearing it.
Great. Yeah, we'll definitely
Definitely.
let you know. It'll be out soon.
Mhm.
Okay.
Soonish.
Okay.
Well, and thank you everyone who's been with us. We appreciate you joining us every time you're here. And please just hit like, subscribe, whatever platform you're watching on, wherever you are with us. We appreciate you.
And really quickly, where can we find you online?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm on Instagram. It's just my name, Kim Krizan, KimKrizan. And I have a little writer's sanctuary on Patreon. It's called The Magic Hour. So if you just go on patreon.com/Kim Krizan. And I'm going to be teaching a screenwriting workshop in Paris in
Ooh.
August of this year, which is 2026.
That's wonderful.
I might go to Paris in August
Please do it.
to take your screenwriting. I'm not even kidding. As she was talking, I was like, I want to take one of your classes.
I
Oh,
know.
And maybe this is an excuse to go
We
to
should
Paris.
Do it.
We should
And
take
take
a
your
field
class.
trip
Do
to
it.
Paris.
Do it. Yeah,
So we're
do
taking
it.
a hiatus in August.
Yeah, I might be gone for the month.
Thank
Love
you all
this.
for watching.
fun.
And this has been such a pleasure. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.